He's skilled in contract administration and negotiation, financial analysis, systems implementations and mergers, university course development, and various other projects. I think it would be quicker if I just mentioned the areas where he does not have the expertise. Being a man of many talents, I would have to warn you that Tony is also someone we have to be a little bit careful with. For one thing, he's a trained marksman, which means that he can shoot you from the longest range that you can ever think of. And as an aviation enthusiast, he can actually quickly take you to the nearest hospital. And if you don't make it, as a classical pianist, he can actually play some tragic, somber music at your funeral. Sorry for this bit of dark humor. I just couldn't help it, looking at the list of his hobbies and talents and many other things that we learned about Tony in the past few days. Now, I'm ready to hand it over to you, Tony, and I want to hear from you. Would you like me to explain how the structure of your workshop will run, or would you like to take it over from here and explain the audience what to expect, when they can expect to ask their questions, and how to interact with you?
Sure, I can actually take it from here.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, Natala. That was quite an introduction. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for having me at this conference. My name is Tony Belilovskiy. I'm coming to you, as Natala said, from a sunny Florida, and it is sunny outside. It's finally turned sunny. It's been gloomy for the last 2 days, so everything is good. So today we're going to have a workshop. So there will be several points during the presentation where I will actually ask the host to unmute the microphones. And I will be asking a series of questions, or we're going to have a discussion just to make sure that we understand what I'm talking about. Because what I will be doing today is a little bit different than you have heard before. And it requires some, let's just say, unhooking your mind. So the first 10 minutes of the presentation will be unhooking your mind, which is we're going to have some fun, we're going to have some laughs, but later on it's going to be very serious matters that will be directly relevant to what we were laughing about. Also, during the presentation, there will be at least 2 times when I will ask the host if there are any questions, and Natala will read the questions that have been submitted via the app. And also, I do have the handouts because I will be showing you some documents and some tools. So I have all of them in the handouts. We weren't able to technologically do this to distribute those handouts ahead of time. So if you will be interested, please reach out to me and I will email you all those handouts. So with that said, let me start the presentation. I'm going to share my screen. Oops. So today we're going to be talking about concentrating on the right thing, and how it's going to help us in the future. The adaptive will survive. This presentation actually is based on some of the experiences that we have had in our consulting practices, along with I got the confirmation of this when I read several articles published by McKinsey, one of the biggest consulting firms in the world. So we were on the right course because McKinsey has completely agreed with the approach that we were taking even before COVID, because some examples that I'm going to be sharing with you are something that happened in Florida in 2004 when 5 hurricanes hit the coast within the span of a month. So, and that is how we ended up dealing with the problem, and we adopted that style going forward, and ever since then it never failed us. The success rate is about 99%. So I hope that I will be able to inspire some of you to actually learn a little bit more about our style, and you're welcome to reach out to me, and I'll answer any of the questions that you have via email. You should have my email in the prospectus that was sent out. So again, this is a little bit about me. Natella already did all of this. And as Natella said, I live in Sarasota, Florida with my wife of over 20 years and 3 daughters. So these are the objectives that we're going to be covering in the next hour and a half. Let's start with top 10 challenges that are most common for all the project management or anything that you have attempted when you attempted to implement the project. These, what we found, are the top 10 most common challenges. The ones in the red are the ones that come up all the time. And we're definitely gonna address those 3 in the red, but we're gonna address most of these 10 steps, 10 challenges during the presentation. And I want to start my presentation with the quote. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. And it was said by Albert Einstein. And he was a very wise and very smart man. So in order for us to fix that, we have to think different. We have to use new systems. We need to change our expectations and design for bigger and better things. So let's start with thinking different. Just by looking at the screen, look at these 3 words: process, product, and outcome. And think about everything that you do at work. Which of these 3 words is mentioned the most? Think about topics of your emails, think about manuals, think about trainings, think about meetings, everything that we discuss and we do in our everyday life as quality professionals. And the word process probably would come out the most. If we have 100 people in the room, of quality professionals in the room, 95 of them, about 92 to 95 of them will say process. There will be some people that will say outcome, but I probably would guess that after this presentation, they will not say the outcome, because I will show you what outcomes actually mean. So if we say process, let's look at it in a little bit more detail. If we look at this diagram, what kind of process are we talking about? Are we talking about process above the line, which is the customer priorities process? Or are we talking about process below the line, which is producer process, which is dimension number 8? And the most common answer is yes, we're talking about dimension number 8, which is a producer process, because we know how to do it, because everything is about process and about process improvement. This is where Six Sigma is, this is where Agile is, this is where Lean is, because we're improving our process to produce the product to achieve the outcome. Now, if you think about these 8 dimensions, and I'm going to talk about them just in a minute. If you think about these 8 dimensions as an 8-cylinder engine, and we got the cylinder number 8 working just like a charm, it's working perfectly. Just imagine that that's an engine, that's a cylinder. Where is the opportunity? What else do we need to improve or change or address so our process actually is successful? Well, the answer is we need to address the other 7 dimensions. And that's what we're going to do right now. And by doing that, we actually are going to address some of the challenges that are happening right now during the COVID times. So let's go back to our diagram. As you can see, the numbers on the diagram are a little bit different. They're not going from left to right, they're going from right to left. And why do you think that is? And again, because this is not live. My presentations are usually very interactive. I always talk to the audience. I ask questions, people answer. So this is a little bit different for me. So just bear with me. And the numbers are from right to left because we always want to start with the end in mind. We always need to know where we're going. What is the end result? What is our goal? What are we trying to achieve? What are the outcomes that we're trying to create? So if we look at this diagram, Dimension number 8, as I mentioned, is our process. Dimension number 7 are the technical characteristics of the product that we are producing. Dimension number 5 and 6 are actually our outcomes, our internal producer outcomes that we're trying to do, which is the profit, market share, absence of warranties, absence of returns, anything that we want from that product that we're producing. And that's why we created that process. Now, a lot of times what is happening that we forget that there is another party to this whole thing, and it's called customer. Because we forget that customers are the ones that make this whole thing work, because if they don't buy our product, this whole thing is moot point. But customers have exactly the same issues and wants as we do. They also know exactly what they want from the products that we are producing and what they don't want from those products that we are producing. They also know what kind of characteristics they want in the product that they are buying, and they want ease of use. They want it to be easy to implement and use. So what you see on the top, we call voice of the customer or customer experience. Two very different things. Customer experience is what they get. Voice of the customer is what they want. So our goal is to actually merge those two. So what they get, what they want is actually what they get. Now, on the bottom, we have voice of the producer. So this is what we want from that product. And in order for us to be wildly successful in our endeavor, especially right now, we need to make sure that we merge those two expectations together. So the customer expectations are aligned with our expectations or vice versa. Now, how do we do that? We usually turn to our traditional project management. And traditional project management is when we know what the solution is, and our job as project managers is to implement the solution on time, on budget, with minimum amount of risk. And that is the traditional project management. Now, what is happening is a lot of times we don't know what the solution is. So we need to find out what we need to do and how to go about it, how to find what product to improve and where to work on it. And only then we can attempt to convert it into the traditional project management. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And that is the strategic project management. So here is some Dilbert for you. Just read it for a second. So in order for us to actually get and understand the strategic project management, we need to be just a team of just like CSI, crime scene investigators. We have to act with precision, we have to act with deliberation, and we have to get the data and know the facts. So that's what we're going to attempt to do today. Because the devil or success is always in details. So let's go back to our diagram. Customer desired outcomes. What are the customer desired outcomes? Well, the customer desired outcomes, to give you a definition, is the reason why customers came to and work with our enterprise. When we are customers of any enterprise or any business, we have 20/20 vision. We know exactly what we want, how we want it, and when we want it. When we actually go on the other side and we become the producers and we are facing the customers, all of a sudden that line gets a little bit blurry and we actually need some glasses sometimes to see the customer side. So let's examine the evidence. Every one of us on this call have stayed, and I'm not saying recently, but probably about a year ago, have stayed in the hotel for the business meeting the next morning. And if I'll ask you a question, what was the most desired outcome that you had to stay in the overnight in the hotel for the business meeting the next morning? The most common answer will be, you wanted a good night's sleep. You were there for the good night's sleep. Now, next day when you check out of the hotel and you get the survey and they're asking you all sorts of things, is there a question about good night's sleep? Nope. They'll ask you about the comfort of your room. They'll ask you about the courtesy of the staff, the cleanliness of the room, and the quality of food. But nobody will ever ask you about a good night's sleep. And why is that? Most likely because they use what we call vital lies. Because they tell themselves, oh, we can't control that, therefore we don't have to ask about it. And you know, in the United States, we have this little joke, don't ask, don't tell. Like, Bill Clinton said in the US Army, if you're gay, we're not going to ask you and you don't tell us. Well, that's actually exactly the same thing. They don't ask us, we never tell them as customers that we actually wanted a good night's sleep. Now, if I'll tell you that I am in that hotel in the honeymoon, for the honeymoon, well, good night's sleep is actually on the very low end of my desires for that night. Can the hotel actually proactively ask, what is the reason for your travel? Is it business or pleasure? Yes, they can. And sometimes they do. But do they do anything with that information? No. Let's examine another industry, finance and investment. So what is the most desired outcome that you have when you work with anybody in financial industry? And the most common answer would be, you want wealth, because if you give them the money, you want that money to multiply and grow. Well, let me ask you another question. What is the industry's the most desired outcome? It happened to be the same thing, wealth. Okay, let's suppose there is a scenario. The market went down, your investments went down, you lost money. Do you still have to pay that management fee to the financial investment firm? Yes, you do. Does it seem fair? Not really. You lost money, but you still have to pay them. Is it something that we have desired from them? Not really. And finally, healthcare. Every single one of us is a customer of healthcare. And I know that I'm talking to people in various countries and you have different experiences with healthcare. But there is still a very common thing amongst healthcare. Anytime we work with anybody in healthcare and we ask them, let me ask you, what is the most desired outcome that you have when you work with anybody in healthcare? And the most common answer will be good health. You want good health. Now, if I'll ask 10 people in the room, if we would have been in the room, I ask what good health means to each of those people, they'll give me 10 different answers. So as when we speak with executives in healthcare and we ask them, what is good health? Do you have a definition? And they say, no, we don't have a definition. Now, if we can't define something, how easy would it be to create measures of success? It's impossible. If you can't create measures of success, how can you create numerical goals for improvement? You can't. And if you can't create numerical goals for improvement, how do you know you got to good health? How do you know that you improved? Well, you can't. But you know what? There is a definition of good health. And maybe you guys in Canada or in other countries actually have seen this, because this is done by World Health Organization. And this is the definition of good health. This is it. Read this. This was written in 1948. In the United States, we still haven't gotten that, but many other countries have. But you know what we got in the United States? When you go to any healthcare organization, it seems like that they think that their mission is to keep you alive. They want to keep you alive, which is great. There is time for that. If you are in emergency or something happened, you definitely want to be kept alive and then get better. But the get better part is missing. Now, let me ask you a question. If you are alive, does it mean you're in good health? Not really. You can be discharged from the hospital into rehab or whatever with tubes coming out of your body. Does it mean you're in good health? But you're alive, all right? Okay, now let's actually reverse this situation. And let's talk about what is the most undesired outcome that we want to achieve by working with healthcare. Actually, undesired outcome that we want to avoid. Well, it's death. Do we have a written definition of death? Oh, yes, we do. Flat line here, you're toast. Do we have machines that will measure death? We have special machines. Yes, we do measure death. Do we have numerical goals for improvement on reducing number of incidents of death during in certain diseases? Yes, we do. Did we just mistaken undesired outcomes with desired outcomes? So what if there are three things that I want you to remember from today's lecture? This is number one. Absence of undesired outcomes does not mean that we have achieved customers' desired outcomes. If you don't have warranties on your product, or warranty returns, doesn't mean that customer is happy with the product. They just haven't exercised the warranty. Unless we measure that. But do we know how to measure this? Not really. So I am actually going to show you how to measure that. So this is actually a quote from a very respectable publication that was done by McKinsey. And I think it's very appropriate to today's situation. And actually, if you read that whole article, they are arguing that for the leaders need to disperse their authority to small teams that have expertise in certain areas, because leaders cannot possibly react to news that are coming in live in real time. Most of the time, leaders get the information that is 2 or 3 days old. Now, if you have a team of quick reaction that is actually has authority to act on the news that they're receiving, that will be the most common and the most appropriate thing to work in the emergency situation. And you know what? We've been practicing this for about 20 years, or 16 years to be exact. And completely agree with McKinsey. The only difference is McKinsey doesn't tell you how to implement this. And I am about to show you how to implement that. So here are some of the things and on how we are going to be implementing this strategy. We've been talking about outcomes and we know what the process is. Let's talk about product, because the product is actually what will get us to that strategy. Product is a connector. It's a connector between the process and the outcome. It's a connector that actually makes everything possible and everything happening. So let's define what is the product. Here is the definition of a product. In order for something to be called a product, it needs to satisfy these 6 characteristics. And they are very, very specific. And all of us are producing products. We just don't know about it because that's not the way we think. We always think of a product as something that comes out in the end of our enterprise. And we all work feverishly and we produce a widget or something or design or something else. But every single one of us on this phone call at this conference is actually producing products. Because if we don't, why would we get paid at work? We produce products. We produce knowledge products. Most of us are producing knowledge products. About 80% of the population of developed countries are producing knowledge products. What are the knowledge products? Designs, policies, audits, reports, directives, emails, courses. These are all knowledge products, and every single one of us is producing those. Now, if you think about your work not as activity, because that's how we usually think about it, but you think about it as producing products, all of a sudden, the whole realm of possibilities open. Because if we produce products and it's tangible and it can be given to somebody and it's countable, you can assign all sorts of characteristics to the product. But before we get there, because that's next slide, that's actually the slide after next, before we get there, let's see if you actually understand this concept. So, relationships, would that be a product or not? Well, it's not a product because you cannot give this to somebody. You can't give 3 relationships to 2 people or whatever. So it's not a product. Information. Can you give information to somebody? Yes, you can. But it's too broad. So you actually need to specify what kind of information it is. You need to actually make it more specific. What kind of information it is? Is it written information? Is it oral information? Is it information for a specific report? Is it information for a specific design? What kind of information it is? As long as you make it more specific, then it's a product. Staff, well, that's not a product. Qualified candidates is a product. Job descriptions is a product, but not staff. Auditing, that's activity. Results, outcome. Managing, activity. Data. Again, data is the same thing as information. It's precursor of a product. You need to specify what kind of data it is. Planning, again, that is activity. So In order for us to put all of this together, we need to make sure that we have a critical success hinges on these different points. We always want to ask customers what they want. If we're creating a team of people that are going to work on a project, team composition is extremely important. We need to clearly define what the project scope is and what the strategic alignment is to the strategic directions of the company. Because if project is not aligned with strategic direction of the company, why would company want to do this? We always want to define what are the processes that we're going to use, what kind of data we're going to collect, how we're going to analyze this data, and most very, very important, how we're going to measure that we are successful. What are the measures of success? So let's go back to our product. There are 7 virtues of defining all work as products, not as activity. It's repeatability. You can always get the same desired characteristics every time. It's measurability. You can measure the product. It's tangibility. It's tangible to be given to somebody or to be received. It's responsibility. It's assigned responsibility, because if product doesn't have an owner, it will create a corporate salute. You know, who is responsible? He is. And nobody's responsible that way. Storability. You can store the product. It's ambiguity free, because when you say something, everybody knows exactly what it is. And these are all the different things that you can do and measure the product with. You can assign cycle time. How long does it take to hire an employee? Well, in order to hire an employee, about 20 to 25 products need to happen. You can assign a cycle time to each of these products, and then you know what the cycle time of the process is, and then you can compare it to what is actually happening. But we're talking about cycle time. We can also have value added time, which is how long does it actually take to do each of these to create each of these products. So for example, you need a signature on a document and it takes 2 days to sign it. But it only takes 20 minutes to review the document and sign it. Well, the difference between 20 minutes and 2 days is your opportunity. And my very personal favorite is the yield, and I'll show you how to calculate it. Yield means done right the first time. If you think about your process as a chain of products, and one of those products has a low yield, meaning it's not done right the first time, all the time. If, for example, it's 10% only time that is done right, the whole process, yield of a process cannot be higher than 10%. So these are the connections. We can describe our work as products. A process is a chain of products, and a product usually is the root cause of all the problems. So let's start putting things together. But before we do that, I wanted to open the microphones and see if we can do a short exercise and actually see if there will be some volunteers to figure out what kind of personal products they're producing. Moderator, can you please open the mics?
The mics are open now.
Anybody wants to volunteer, guys? Any volunteers on trying to figure out what kind of products they personally create at work?
Hi there. I produce audit.
One more time. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Was it Maria who spoke?
City development process.
So you are developing processes? Is that what you do? Elena? Well, development of process is actually not a product, because when you develop a process,
No, I meant developer.
I'm sorry? Can you repeat that?
Development.
I'm sorry, the connection was really poor. It just like cut out in the middle. But if we will say that what Yelena said about developing a process, well, developing a process will actually consist of multiple products. In order for you to develop a process, you need to create multiple products, like you need to create a design, you need to create a timetable, you might need to create an audit of some sort. So all of those products are something that needs to be created before you can actually create a process. So let's actually continue and let's keep going. We're gonna look at how the product connects everything that I just talked about. So we're gonna review a strategic plan, something Pinellas County Utilities. Pinellas County in the United States is in the state of Florida, and it's a city of St. Petersburg in Clearwater. If you have seen, Clearwater is one of the top beaches in the US on the Gulf side of Florida, on Gulf of Mexico. And we worked with the county to create a strategic plan for them. And this is actually the example that I wanted to use. That's one of the examples that I'm going to be using today. And during our work with Pinellas County, what actually happened is 5 hurricanes slammed into Florida, 1 of them on the Gulf Coast and 3 of them on the East Coast. But it doesn't matter where they hit because the whole state of Florida is affected. And the city of St. Petersburg was inundated with water, and they had to deal with that. But before it happened, we actually started working on a strategic plan. And the guy who was in charge of the utilities said that he wants to create a plan that is on 1 page, and every single person who works for the organization is understanding what the strategic plan is, how to read it, how to implement it, and what is their personal responsibility to how they can help to achieve the outcomes that are outlined in the strategic plan. So we've created that. If you will visit our website and scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see that strategic plan under the articles. If you'll go to Pinellas County Utilities website, you will see that strategic plan as well. It was done about 16 years ago, but it's still current because they keep changing it. So this is what it looks like. On the left, you have 3 superordinate outcomes: economic growth, have a healthy and clean environment, and customer satisfaction. And the way it was created, we actually had people in the room from the organization, from ditch diggers to C-suite of the organization, and customers. What a novel idea. You actually have customers in the room and you ask them what they want. You ask them certain questions and you get their input into how your organization should be actually working. And, you know, it's since this is a public utility, it works for people, for the citizens of the county. And, you know, nobody had any idea that they can actually ask people what they want. So then we had subordinate outcomes, meaning that in order for you to achieve the superordinate, like customer satisfaction, you need to improve all of these subordinate outcomes. Customers as fans, customers viewing PCU as preferred provider, blah, blah, blah. We created measures of success. You don't see them here because it was too much, because if I wanted the map to be readable, I just couldn't squish it, but it's all on 1 page. It just continues on the bottom. So if you will go to our website, you will actually see what kind of measures of success they have created. So they had 18 of them, 18 measures of success. And as you can see, a lot of measures were actually used for multiple outcomes. Then they did the inventory of all the products that the Pinellas County utilities have produced. They inventoried all of their products, and apparently they had about 60 products, over 60 products. So we gave them a tool that to use and to actually prioritize those products on what are the most important for the company. And that take a brand new meaning, because the first hurricane happened August 13th, Charlie happened. And we were doing this August 10th. And after August 13th, all of a sudden, everything changed. Everything that they thought about has changed because St. Petersburg was underwater. The city of St. Petersburg actually was under about a foot of water for a while. So all of a sudden, they started thinking, we're in crisis. What can we do? How can we prioritize all of our products and concentrate on 1 or 2 that actually will help us to weather this crisis, because we only have limited amount of resources. We have limited crews. You know, we only have the same amount of crews, but now we have this major crisis going on. So how do we distribute what we have in the most effective way? So what they did is they said, if, for example, they took the first product and they said, if the contracts and procurement, if we improve that product, would it improve the outcome? If yes, they put an X. If no, they don't put anything. And they did it with all their products and they prioritized them. And then you just count X's. So it seems like that the most important product was the diagnosis at that particular time, because they were in the crisis. So they can make the correct diagnosis of what is going on in that particular phone call that they received in an emergency, and they can dispatch the right crew with the right equipment. They can fix the problem right there, and they don't have to come back to it. That is how would be the wisest thing to spend their resources. So number one reason was the diagnosis, which is a product, to make a correct diagnosis of the problem. The second most important product was locates. Locates is something that all of us know about, but we don't know that it's called locates. And locates is something that usually indicates that there is either a communication line or pipeline or electrical line or gas line or water line underground, and you cannot dig in that space. And it usually like little flags or little markings on the pavement that they draw, and they say, do not dig. So those two products they have isolated, and they said, this is what we're going to concentrate on. So I am going to show you an example of what they actually did. And I'm going to use locates because that is the most telling and the most incredible example and the most incredible thing that they have came up with. And it was extremely quick. And I'll show you the methodology that they used to make it very quick. So if you have incorrect locates, this is what is going to happen. This is the result of incorrect locates. Somebody digs and hits the pipe. And there was a lot of digging going on, especially with the water standing. There was a lot of digging going on in the city. And in Florida, you have this law. So for example, on the left picture, if you have McDonald's or any kind of busy business that is on the street corner and you ended up restricting access to it and they lost money, whoever is responsible for creating that mess has to reimburse that business for the lost revenue. So it was in county's best interest to make sure that they dig right the first time, because otherwise they're out mucho bucks. That's another example of what happens. So what they did is they built a chain of products. They said, we want to prevent line breaks. So what is the product that comes before the line break happens? Well, it's locate. Great. We identified locates as one of the most important products that the county produces. So let's work on locates. Let's fix it. So they did a focus group with the contractors and people who actually were using the locates as their product. And they found out that the biggest issue that people have with locates is the accuracy. And I'll tell you how to do those focus groups. We do a very, very structured focus group with only 5 questions. And those 5 questions are able to give you an answers and data that is actually objective and tangible, not subjective and squishy. So they said accuracy is the biggest issue of the locates. So it means, if we go back to the diagram, that it's the not locates is the issue, it's something downstream. So what is downstream? Maps, record drawings, geographical information system, which is the satellite beam from down into the ground. So they started examining these issues. And what they came up with is this, that the maps were incorrect, because when the maps were drawn, they were drawn with something specific in mind. But St. Petersburg, city of St. Petersburg, has a very shifting ground. It, just like New Orleans, it's a shape of a bowl. In the middle of the bowl is below the sea level. And the ground is shifting. There are actually a lot of sinkholes in that area. So when the map was laid in 1960s or 1970s, when the pipe was laid, it can be now, I don't know, 15 a foot over to the side. So according to the map, it should be here, but it could be a foot or 2 or 3 over just because of ground shifting. So therefore, they figured out that actually the map drawings is the issue, the record drawings. And then they started collecting the information on record drawings. When they collected the information, this is what the information looked like. This is what the data looked like. So if you have this particular data, do you know where to start working on, what to concentrate on first to fix the issue first? Well, obviously Pinellas Village, because it has the highest excavation cost, because if they can't locate where the thing is, they have to excavate. So if they can eliminate this particular issue, they're gonna have accurate locates. That's how they came up. That's what they did in crisis. They prioritized their products and concentrated on critical few that success of the enterprise hinged on, because they only had limited resources and limited crew and limited equipment. Well, it wasn't limited, it was business as usual, but the problem is that the situation was not business as usual. So now let's talk about the customers, because that is gonna complete our puzzle. Who are the customers? Because for each product we create has the customers. Well, we divide customers into 3 different categories. We divide customers into end users. End users are the customers that are ultimately using our product. They are the ones that actually use the product. This is not a homogeneous group. Usually they're different by sex, by age, by their relationship with the product, by, men and women can have totally different relationships with the same product. For example, a car. Well, men like driving the car, but you know what is the biggest pet peeve of women with the car? There is no place to put the purse. If somebody is sitting on the front seat, where do they put the purse? There is no place for it. It's not news and it's not new. Has anybody addressed it? Well, because nobody's talked to end users. Because producers of the cars, the car manufacturers, are usually talking to brokers, who are the dealerships. So brokers are the ones that transfer the product on behalf of the end user or on behalf of the producer. They transfer the product from the producer to end user. So brokers can act on the behalf of end user, on behalf of producer, or on their own behalf, because they have a monetary gain from that transaction. And finally, we have fixers. Fixers are the ones that have to fix, segment, or change the product during the life cycle of the product on behalf of the end user. And fixers usually know in excruciating details what is wrong with the product, how to fix it, and what needs to be done, but nobody's talking to them. Because usually those are the people that answer that 1-800 number when you call when something is not working. And they're just logging the answers into the CRM system if they're lucky. If not, they just direct you how to do it. And then that information is not captured. And if somebody would actually look at that information very carefully and talk to fixers, they would know how to modify their product to the detriment of the end user. So why is this important? This is why. For example, if I would be in the room and I would ask you to draw a prescription, what you think is a prescription, and we would do a Pictionary, and I would give you 15 seconds, these are the 3 possible answers that you would draw. The prescription, the piece of paper, or the electronic prescription, then the bottle of pills, because we commonly in English language call it a prescription too. And actually in 5 or 6 years, only 5 people draw prescription glasses, because they call it prescription too. So why is this important? This is why. If this is the product, which is correct, this is the prescription, producer is the doctor, end user is, guess what? Pharmacist, not the patient. Pharmacist is the one that actually filling your prescription. So pharmacist is the end user. Patient and the nurse are the brokers, because they transfer the prescription from the doctor to the pharmacist. They actually, either they bring that piece of paper or they electronically send it to the pharmacy. Now, if the bottle of pills is the product, then the producer is the pharmaceutical company. And the end user is the patient. And then we have the cast of characters. The doctor who wrote the prescription, the pharmacist who filled the prescription, the salesperson who came to the doctor and explained, you want to write this prescription versus that prescription because, whatever. And then we have in US, a friendly HMO, in Canada, your healthcare system that will decide whether they're going to cover this prescription or not. So these are all brokers. And what are those brokers do to the unit cost of that pill? Well, it goes up. The unit cost goes up. So what we want to do when we build our process, we want to make sure that we try to eliminate or minimize the role of brokers. We'll always want to ask end users. And as I said there, if there are three things that I wanted to you to take out of this lecture, this is the second one. We cannot meaningfully talk about who the customers are until we know what product they are customers for. Because customers may play different roles with different products, the same customers. There may be a broker for one product and the end user for another product. Think about it. The audit report that you just produced is used by a director of manufacturing to fix the process. So the director of manufacturing is end user of your audit report. But at some point, director of manufacturing could be a broker because he or she is transferring that report to the engineers that will redesign the process. So it could either be an end user or it could be a broker. And that is our job to figure out what their relationship with this particular product is. And the most important thing is that each of these three different kinds of customers have different expectations and different wants from our product. So if we really want to know what they need, what they want, and what they think, we need to ask each of those groups separately. Because if we have brokers and end users in the room, brokers will drown out the end users because brokers have more to lose than end users. Because a lot of times brokers are the ones that are getting financial gain. So if we are thinking different, now we need to use a new system, tools, and methods. Again, on our website, we have what we came up with as a decision tree. How do you do a strategic project when solution is not known? So these are the excerpts of that. If you will go to our website and you scroll all the way down, you will have a decision tree. It has 16 steps. So we will start though with team management. Remember, I told you that it has to be small teams of quick reaction that will, so again, we've been using this system for about 16 years. Well, it was developed 35 years ago. We've been using it for over 30 years, but it has been perfected in the last 16 years. So the project roles on the team are sponsors, the team leader, team members, and advisors. And the sponsor's role, really, sponsor is not a member of the team. Sponsor is the person in the high end of the organization, hopefully somebody who has the power to open the doors, to remove the obstacles, and to actually say yes to implementation of the product and to implementation of the project and the process that you've done. And the team lead is the one that will direct the team. Team members, we always advocate for about 5, no more than 5 people on the team. And a lot of times we also advocate for the team members not to be directly involved with this product and not to be subject matter experts. Because if they're subject matter experts, their mind is tainted because they already have formed a solution in their mind. And what we want to do is we want to have an open mind, completely open mind, because that will allow us to do things and think out of the box. And we will use the subject matter experts just as such, subject matter experts, which are advisors. So, and we always start with the project charter. And project charter is extremely important because if the problem is well stated, it's half solved. And you cannot really make a treatment plan before you have completed or created a correct diagnosis. So this is the example of a project charter. And again, this is on the handout. So if you guys want to have it, just reach out to me and I'll email it to you. The project charter, the difference is that this particular project charter is a living thing. It's not a traditional project charter that's when it's signed, this is a blueprint and that's how we're going to do our project. Well, this charter, project charter, is changeable. As you can see on the very top, version number and revision date. Well, it's not uncommon to have 8 to 10 revisions of the charter from the inception of the project to the end of the project. Right now, I'm working with the team in Iowa and they're on the version number 7 of this charter. And everything is hinged on CSAs, current situational assumptions. And I'm going to talk about this just in a minute, because that is the statement of the problem. what we're trying to address in simple layman's terms, just simple statements. So charter actually is something that will prevent scope creep, because we're talking about what are the desired outcomes that we want to try to get out of this project. What are the undesired outcomes that we want to avoid? What are the different project phases, and what are the deadlines and due times? We advocate that none of the projects takes more than 4 to 5 months, and that is too long. So no project can be longer than 4 months. That is what we advocate. And then we practice what we preach, because each of the products or each of the products that we use to work with the projects is assigned to a team member. And every tool, we have over 40 tools for project management, every tool is assigned to a specific team member, and they're responsible for certain tools. And that means that they have an owner. So if something is wrong with the tool, or it's not, information has not been updated, we know where to go and who to ask.
Tony, can I ask you a question before we
Yes.
move to the next subject? Because the question that's coming now, I feel is pertinent to this particular part of your discussion.
Absolutely.
So Dale Sahota is asking us, does this process also work for prototype projects where the customer is still refining the final product and may not be aware of final customer?
Yes, absolutely. And we have done that. Again, I did not include it in this presentation because we have limited time. But if the person wants to reach out to me offline, I can explain how that is done. Yes, it's absolutely working on the prototype. And actually, it's great for product development. We have this whole section in our training that we do in product development and innovation. And that is how we use it.
Okay, there was one more question here.
Yes.
Kind of on the same subject, but a little bit different. The question is that what if you don't have access to end users of your products? And that came to us at the point of discussion when you were talking about how brokers have more to lose in terms of the financial gain.
Mm-hmm.
And the manufacturer of the product most of the time does not even ask properly what the end user wants. So talk about the situations when you don't have access to the end user. Sometimes maybe you don't know who they are. So talk about that, please.
Yeah, that is actually a very, very bad situation to be in. And so far, I have not, we were told all the time, well, we don't know who the end users are. We don't know what is happening. We don't know how to get there. And when we start talking to them a little bit, all of a sudden, all of that appears and becomes clear. So again, I gave a very short explanation of who the end users are and how to find them. But what you think of an end user who is using your product is not necessarily an end user that you should be going after. For example, if your product is a component of another product, so if you are a manufacturer of a particular product that is part of a bigger product later on, so for example, you're subcontracted to Ford or GM or Boeing, and you create a wing for the Boeing, and then that wing goes to the Boeing factory, and the end users are the pilots of the plane. Well, actually, there will be intermediate end users that actually take your product that you just produced and do something with it to make it a component of something else. So it's a different way of thinking, and I can definitely have a side conversation with that person who asked. So please reach out to me and we can have a great conversation about it, and hopefully that will clear, it will clear everything for you.
Okay, one more thing, and maybe we'll end this particular round of questions / comments.
Yes.
There's one that came earlier from Santosh, and his comment / question is, desired outcome is dependent on time. What's desired today will not be the same after a while. So I guess it's about like staying on top of those changing requirements.
Exactly, because we are looking at situation at a particular time. We can't project what happens in the future, but just if you think of an example, for example, cell phones, if we talk about 2005, 2006, cell phones were novelty. Not everybody could have a cell phone. They were very expensive. They were like a status thing. But luxury once experienced becomes necessity. Right now, we can't even think about living without a cell phone. So over time, desired outcomes change, and that is correct. So we can only say something about what is true right now, what do we know right now, and that's actually exactly what I'm going to be talking about right now. That was, Natella, that was a perfect segue to what I'm about to talk about.
Great, thank you.
And I'm sorry, on my screen, this slide is bright blue, but for some reason it's not readable here. So I have no idea what happened.
You can read it to us then.
Yeah, so I said that charter is hinged on current situational assumptions, and that is exactly what it is about the desired outcomes. Current situational assumptions are assumptions about conditions the team is formed to address. You know, it may have been stated as a problem that if proven true, the team will need to develop remedies for. And again, I'm reading you because it's very unreadable. So don't usually read slides, but this time I'm reading it.
Mm-hmm.
Assumptions can also be an opportunity you believe exists that the team would verify and develop a recommendation to fulfill that potential opportunity. Because again, that's what we want today, but you know, a year from now, we may want a different thing because we improved our product, we created that product, and now customers also, we got this. Okay, how about we also add that to this? You know, but then it's a business decision. Do we really want to go down that route? Do we really want to add that another thing, or this is for a totally different product? And again, the most important thing, assumptions are only that. It's assumptions until proven true or false. These are the rules, and this is all in the handout. So if you guys want to have this, I can email it to you. These are the ways how to write these current situational assumptions. And I'm just going to very quickly show you what the charters would look like. And this is the first reiteration of the charter. And if you read this, it actually violates every single rule because it has causes, remedies in it, and it's not clearly stated in the concise, simple sentences. Sorry, can't talk. So if we come back to this and you read number 2, it's concise. It has to be a concise declarative sentence that is unambiguous and not written in a compound and incomplete sentence, and it's void of causes, results, or remedies. This exactly how they wrote this, and this is normal for pretty much every team. Then they worked on it, and this is the second reiteration of the charter. Which is better, but still they have causes: current, inaccurate, incomplete, and inaccessible diagnoses result in no response time or cycle time. Well, they have results. So they already confine themselves in the box. They can't think out of the box because they already have causes and results in there. So this is the final version of the charter. Diagnoses are inaccurate, incomplete, and inaccessible. Just a clear, concise statement that you can either say true or false based on the data that you have collected. And again, all of these examples are in the handout. So what we always want to make sure is our project is connected to the strategic objectives of the company and the core values of the company. For example,
Tony, just one quick question, and you let me know whether you want to answer this now or later.
Yeah.
So the only reason I'm asking is because it's a workshop, and this question might be pertaining to this part of the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Freddie Matthews is asking us, what about the project's restrictions? Should they be also outlined in the project charter?
Absolutely. It's actually, if I come back to this, on the second page, it's right here, undesired outcomes. And right here, recognition of success or consequences of failure. And that's where we would outline actually restrictions. Do not touch that, do not go there, do not do this. So we're outline everything in this charter. We try to encompass absolutely every single situation that may happen with us during this project, and we want to document that. So we have all of this all in one page. Again, this is one Excel document. So with Excel, you know, you can extend things.
Thank you very much for clarifying that.
Yep. So here is the project. And again, what I'm showing you is something that was done with public institutions, so we can share this information. We don't have non-disclosure agreement signed with them because this is actually a state agency in the state of Minnesota. And this is the real charter that they used. They had an HR project on hiring, and this is actual real charter. Customers feel the hiring process takes too long. So this is what they were trying to address. And this is how the project would look like. So they went ahead and collected the data, and that's what they got. Hiring process takes too long. True. The current process takes 79 to 128 calendar days. Now, let me ask you a question. If you want to be hired and it takes 128 calendar days, are you going to be sitting around if you're a civil engineer and waiting for a state agency to hire you 128 days later? Or you're going to find a job in 2 weeks and start working elsewhere? So the biggest issue was they don't have qualified candidates. They couldn't get qualified candidates because they were moving too slow. So, and why do we know that it's true? Because 128 chance to fill, you know, they collected all of this data. And now then they list the source of data. And this is part of the data that they have collected and what it looks like. And if you look over here, some of it, it says focus group priorities. So they did some focus groups. So let's talk about focus groups, which is voice of the customer. So there is a little bit of Dilbert for you. So how do we do the focus groups? We use what we call word formulas. Word formulas are as precise as mathematical formulas. In math, we have the years of formal training, and we learn that 2 + 2 is 4. Well, the same, if somebody says 2 + 2 is 5, well, you're gonna either look funny at that person, or if it happens to be an accounting department, I think there will be a cause for immediate termination. But if you start using word formulas, language could be as precise as math. So, for example, a satisfying insert the product is the one which results in, and that will be the outcome. A satisfying product, the one will not result in, that is undesired outcome. A satisfying product is the one which is, and that gives you features of the product. A satisfying product, the one that has, and that actually gives you expectations of the product. So again, we have a decision tree, and this is all on our website, and it's part of the handout. We have a decision tree that we use when we do the focus groups. It's highly choreographed. It takes about 60 minutes, but then during the debriefing, you actually, because people get to vote on the most desired outcomes and how it's done, and then you actually get a real objective actionable data that you can either send back into your Six Sigma project or any kind of project, because that is that perception, customer perception data that you can never get to because it's gray and squishy, and you can actually now objectify it and numeralize it. And we're actually going to be doing a presentation just on that at ASQ conference in Phoenix, Lean and Six Sigma in Phoenix, where myself and a black belt person are going to be talking how we did a project together where we use these particular techniques and then pipe the data back into the black belt project for the analysis. So we get all this data. What do we do and how do we manage it? So we have different ways of doing that, and we can create a product chain of products, as I told you. We can actually measure quality and volume of each product. We can use yield. We can calculate yield of a product. We can calculate the time of the product, cycle time, value added time. We can calculate the cost of each product, the satisfaction and simplicity. Have you ever costed a hiring process? Well, that team did. And when they realized that each time they try to hire somebody, it cost organization over $15,000, they were appalled. But when they were done with the project, they actually decreased it from 120 days to 36 days. And the cost went down to somewhere under $5,000. Because just in staff costs that they were creating products that nobody needed. And then there were some products that they didn't know why they're doing this. And they analyzed it based on this tool that we gave them, which is a product flow fact sheet, which is function, activity, and time. So they plotted their product flow into this worksheet. And as you can see, this is Excel. As you can see, some of the cells are bigger than the others. And the length of the cell represents cycle time. The longer the cycle time is, the bigger the cell. You see there is some excerpt because the chart goes down. And there is a product that has been created while all others have been created. And this product was a culprit. And I'll show you actually what they did with this in about 2 minutes. And below that, there is this whole section in the worksheet where you can create a function of each of the products. Because if we are doing the chain of products, we're not talking about activity. Well, this is your chance of actually talk about activity. How long does it take to create each product? What is the yield of the product? Who touches the product? Is there multiple people that have to actually do something in order for this product to be created? And what is the cycle time of each of those entities that are creating this product? And it's all below that in Excel form. When you actually use this tool, it's incredible how easy and understandable all of a sudden the whole process becomes, and it lays out it jumps at you what you really need to work on and concentrate on to fix the issue. So we're talking about yield. Let's talk about yield. So if, for example, we have 4 products, the yield of the process will be yield of product 1 times yield of product 2 times yield of product 3 times yield of product 4. And if the yield of product 1 is 40%, well, the yield of the whole process is only 9%. But if we fix that product number 1, and all of a sudden the yield is 99%, the yield of the whole process just went up to 22%. So yield is extremely important. But again, we're talking about knowledge products. Nobody has ever attempted to, calculate a yield of a knowledge product. Well, there is a way to do this, and it's actually very easy to do when you think of your work as products. Here's an example. We worked with a private college in state of Kansas on the solution because they had a huge issue with access cards. And Nutella, I'm about 5 minutes away from the end of the presentation, just for the timing.
Okay.
5 to 7 minutes. So they were talking about access control cards. They had a huge issue, and the issue was that adjunct professors that go to work for the college, they're issued access cards so they can open their respective classrooms. Usually it's in the evening, and it's after hours, after the whole college is closed, 6 or 7 p.m. And for the first time they go in, they try to open the door, and the door is not opening. And they spent over $200,000 trying to fix the issue. How do we get the information from human resources? How do we know from register which rooms they're going to be in? Blah, 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 blah. And for 2 years, they couldn't fix this issue. So the actual assistant executive director of IT was on one of our workshops. And she said, how about you come in and help us with this? So we did. So we started asking questions. Let's find out if when you do the access control card, what is the product that access control card based on? And they said, well, it's actually a work ticket that we get from the help desk, because information that we program the access control card with is based on that ticket, on that information that is in that work ticket. And the work ticket, actually, what comes before the filled out work ticket? Well, it's a blank work ticket. What comes before that? It's the auto-generated email that is coming from human resources with the information. It's sent to the help desk, and help desk creates a work ticket for us. And what comes before that? Well, it's HR onboarding checklist that actually provides all that information and generates that email. Okay, so we started evaluating all these products. And what happened is there is a whole slew of products that are called source products. They are the source of all good and evil because they are the policies or manuals or procedures that tell us how to do things. So the onboarding checklist was based on the HR onboarding policy. And the work tickets were based on the team dynamic system, which is the system that they're using to create help, to use the help desk with, and the decision tree. that the system was using that was figuring out what kind of tickets they need to use and what kind of tickets they need to generate and how the information is going to go. So when we started looking at the data, we actually realized that it was not the work ticket, it was not the blank ticket, it was actually team dynamics system. Because team dynamics system was not meant to do what they were trying to do, and they were trying to Mickey Mouse and reprogram it. And it just was not able, it was not meant to do certain things. So based on some of the data they have collected, they decided that they're going to innovate. So what they did is they got rid of the ticket. They got rid of all of that, and they created a brand new product, which was an ID card, because in that particular college, the name badge was given by security in human resources, and access card was a totally separate product. So what they did, they combined product into one, so they completely bypassed the team dynamics system that was no longer needed, because that was the culprit that was prohibiting them from actually using a correct information on programming those access cards. And this all was based on the workflow of products that we created right there in the room, and it took 25 minutes to do, and this is how it looked. This is the picture of a project that took 25 minutes to do, literally. So I was talking in the beginning about the product and process connection. That product is the most important thing. And I said there are 3 of them. Well, I lied. There are actually 7. So if we describe all the work as products, a process is a chain of products. A product is the root cause of any problem. We always want to look for the product that requires most rework, has the lowest yield, has the largest complexity and dissatisfaction. We always want to identify missing products, and this is extremely important. Usually those are the source products. So if we don't have a policy or a manual on how to create a product, it means it doesn't get done the same every single time. So we have the variations, so we have the low yield. We always want to look for missing source products. So we always want to fix the product before we start fixing the process. And we can also organize products in different families for simplicity, for scope, complexity, purpose, cost, and the customers. And that is actually a topic for a different presentation and discussion. And last but not least, I want to give you the result of that fact sheet, what was actually done in that project in the state of Minnesota in one of the state agencies. They had an issue with contracting. The state issued a directive saying that they want to make sure that the state contracts with disadvantaged businesses, the minority-owned, veterans-owned, when they evaluated the problem, on average, it was 169 or 177 days, sorry, to issue a contract for a low amount of money. So for example, they concentrated on contracts under $250,000. So we're talking about like mowing the grass on the side of the highway, or putting the stop sign in, or fixing the guardrail or along the highway. It was Department of Transportation. So it took almost 177 days from the beginning of the issue identified to the point where the contract was awarded to the contractor. If you're a small business, 177 days is a huge time. You can't really live on that expectation waiting. So they implemented a brand new process. They looked at the process as a flow of products. They eliminated over 12 of them because they didn't need it. They actually collected the data of what is happening. They went to the legislature, they presented the data, and they got approval to change the process because everything has to be done via legislature. They got approval on the first try, which is unheard of. And they said that we want to try to reduce the cycle time, which is the total time for the contract to be awarded, by 80%. We routinely see 50 to 80% cycle time reduction when you attempt the C3 projects. C3 stands for customer-centered culture. That's the name of my company. our company. And they actually exceeded their goal. They actually achieved 90% cycle time reduction. They started with 177 days. They ended with 16 days. 3 months later.
Tony,
Yes.
sorry, yeah, not to interrupt you or anything. We have less than 15 minutes left.
Yep.
What I would
I only
recommend
have
to
2
you,
slides left.
no, what I would recommend to you at this point is, I was going to ask you, you should probably start like generating a discussion with the audience. Maybe you can start asking questions
Yep.
to kind of get some dialogue going here.
Yep, absolutely. So this is the result that they actually achieved. And in the first year, they saved over $1 million just in the cost of administration of the contract. And they put that $1 million back into the kitty for the new contracts to be done. And what I just showed you is just the tip of an iceberg, because there is so much data and so much information behind it that if you're interested, please contact me and I'll provide you with more information. We have it a lot on our website. And if they can do it, you can do that too. So if we can unmute the mics.
We don't have to unmute. Unmuting mics creates a lot of background noises, which are unnecessary. But you can start asking your own questions to generate the discussion, and whatever the answers we have, I'll read those to you from the Slido
Okay.
or the
So
chat.
first of all, I wanted to see if there are any questions that came from the audience that I can answer.
Not yet. I've been watching both Slido and the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I want you to kind of start the discussion.
Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go back to the notion of a product.
One question we do have actually.
Yes.
So it's from Freddie Matthews again. He's asking, have you managed this approach with agile projects?
Yes, with IT, and we had great success with IT. I really can't give the very firm details on that project because we have a non-disclosure agreement signed with that particular company, but I can tell you that it was an implementation of a brand new software for the research chemists around the world to use simultaneously. And it was an agile project. And the structure was left as agile, but the voice of the customer technique was used in order to get a real-time data from users on how what is their relationship with the system is going to be, what are the functions that they need to have in that system, because the functions that were listed prior to that, when we actually talked to different types of users and when we identified those, apparently people who were in charge of the project were in awe because they thought that there will be only 6 or 7 distinct users of that system. Well, they came up with 43 distinct types of users. And each of those types of users had their own needs on how to program the system. So we collected all that data, provided it to the project, and then by using agile techniques, they had to manipulate how they're going to implement that system and how they're going to program that blank slate of program.
Okay, so there's another question now from Ismail. He's asking, I like the discussion product versus process. How do you see the issues that may take place when these concepts are mixed?
A lot of times, actually, it's more common than you think, where the process and the product concepts are mixed, and it's extremely difficult to differentiate where one stops and another one starts. And it takes actually skill and practice. But in the end, you can always figure out what are the products, because sometimes there could be obscure or not necessarily on the top of your mind that will actually make up that particular process. And again, if you would go on our website and read one of the articles, which is the voice of the customer in the widget-free world, there is a very good discussion on the product and how to distinguish that from the process and how to differentiate those two. Okay,
thank you. Another question. The QA concept of internal customer has been around for a while and focuses on the internal process, but not the internal products. Why?
Well, because the traditional thinking is that we have internal customers and external customers. And a lot of times we pay most of the attention to the external customer because that is who is paying our bills, literally. But in order for us to be facing external customer, we need to create a slew of products internally, because most of the people that work within the organization don't see or don't interact with the customers, but they create products that are critical for creation of that final enterprise level product that is given to the customer. Unfortunately, we are used to, as I said, look at our work as activity. We are planning, we're designing, we're auditing, we're budgeting, we're accounting. But hardly anybody will ever say, I produce audit reports, I create courses, I write policies and procedures, I produce designs, because commonly we view work as process, as activity. And it's a different way of thinking. It's a mind shift. And we are not trained to do that. We've never been trained to do that. But if you start looking at it this way, all of a sudden, you have a totally different perspective on what you do and who is actually your customer, your direct customer that is using the products that you are producing. And as an example, we have a county in Iowa that I'm currently working with, and they actually changed the whole way how they hire people. And every single person who is an employee of the county needs to know what products they produce and who are the customers for those products. And their yearly evaluations are not necessarily done by the supervisor. It's not 100% based on the supervisor subjective data. 50% of the evaluation is from the customers of their personal products. So it's more objective, not subjective.
Okay. We have another question here. Yelena Mitelkin, she's thinking about SIPOC, where the O stands for output. And she says, I guess product is a new output.
Yes.
Product managers and agile development are output managers.
Yes. And actually, the SIPOC has a direct translation into what I have been talking about. And this is actually a presentation that we're going to be doing in on ASQ Lean Six Sigma conference in February in Phoenix. And we're actually going to take the SIPOC and we're going to put how we can utilize the SIPOC concept with product notion. How do we go from process to product and then pipe it back into the process? So O, correct, is output, which is actually the product.
So you do see this acronym changing in the future?
Actually, yes, because right now, if you look at Quality 4.0 and what ASQ, a lot of lectures in ASQ, and if you read a lot of literature and everybody's talking about Quality 4.0, it means that we need to connect our Six Sigma projects, our SIPOC methodology, our DMAIC methodology into objectives of the customer. That is the buzzword right now, because we're trying to create an artificial intelligence with all of these outputs and inputs, but we can analyze the behavior of the customer and we can base everything based on the behavior, but we cannot analyze what they want, because if they don't tell us what they want, we can't analyze that. We cannot use that data. So that is the trick. How do you combine those two and then pipe them in to your project? Because again, don't ask, don't tell. If we're not going to ask the right questions, we're not going to get the right information.
That's good. These are the questions. Okay, one more have here. How is an outcome different from output? Typically, output is the final stage of the SIPOC diagram. It's not necessarily the final stage, but you can still talk about it.
Yeah, well, the output is actually what we have produced. We have done the process and, you know, we have created this. We went through all of these stages of a process and we created something. But whatever we created, this something, is it really what the customer wanted? Is it really what has been asked us to do. So we can be in the business of producing buggy whips. You know, we can create the best buggy whips out there based on our research and development. And it's automatic and it whistles when you whip the buggy and whip the horse with it. But do we really need a buggy whip anymore? Does anybody is using it? Is it really needed in the marketplace out there? So it's an output, but it's not an outcome, because by producing this output, have we actually achieved the desired outcome? If we can measure that, that's when success comes in. That is the final goal, to measure that desired outcome. Any more questions?
Yeah, any other questions, audience members? I don't see any more coming at this point. We have people thanking you here, Tony, for your presentation.
Thank you. And again, I just wanted to reiterate, if you're interested in getting that handout, just email me, tony@c3excellence.com, and I will reply with a handout and more information. You can ask me any questions.
That's great then. Well, thank you very much, Tony. We do have 3 minutes left. Unless you have your final words of wisdom, we can wrap up this session. And
well, the last thing that I wanted to say, just try for a day on Monday when you come back to work.
No, it's Tuesday for us. Monday is still conference day.
Sorry. Well, today is Sunday, so I was thinking tomorrow. So when you go back to work on Tuesday, try to think what you do and what products do you produce, and see if that changes something, because a lot of products that you produce are not actually needed to be produced. In reality, when you start evaluating that, maybe you're spinning your wheels without actually, value map diagram. You do a lot of work, but you're not producing anything with that busy work. So think about what you have produced, what product you produced today.
Output versus outcome, right?
Yes.
Thank you. That really sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Tony. It was a great discussion. There's one last question. I don't know if you have time for it. What's that object on the wall to your right? Yeah, it's a good question. I was thinking it's a spider or what is it, but it's not.
No, it's actually flowers.
Flowers. Oh, I guess. Yeah. Well, that's a good question, anonymous audience member. Good eyes. I've been wondering about if they kept silent.
I know Florida is known for, having bugs, size of a bugs that you can put a saddle on, but that's not one of those.
Oversized insects. Okay, yes. Well, good to know then. Thank you so much, Tony, for joining us all the way from your sunny Florida with oversized insects and stuff. Hopefully you will be in the audience tomorrow. If you have the time, we'll be happy to have you participate in other sessions. And now I want to hand it over to Alex, our moderator. He has some survey for our audience members. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Natala. Thank you all for attending this session. We truly hope you enjoy it. And again, we'd love to hear your feedback on this. So please take a minute to answer this brief poll.
And honestly, I would love to get the feedback on this presentation as well, guys.
You're all about customer satisfaction, aren't you?
Yes. We try to practice what we preach.
Well, you can participate in the poll and give yourself some pat on the back.
You will be closing the poll in 15 seconds. Thank you.
You have lots of good comments here from people thanking you, Tony.
Thank you.
And saying that they enjoyed your presentation. It was great.
Thanks again, everyone. Over to you, Robin.
Let's hope that this works a little bit better than it did this morning. Can everybody see
does.
that single
It
slide?
does. Yeah, it's good. It's good, Robin.
Good. Okay, so as a thank you for attending today and tomorrow, we're going to be drawing random names of attendees, and the winners are going to get access to a free ebook produced by Goal GPC. The default choice of ebook is called the Kata Memory Jogger. So if you attended Hugh's, Ali's presentation earlier today, it will be a really valuable resource. So there's an extensive list of other memory joggers available, and you can elect to get a different book. So there's a bunch on Lean Six Sigma, a bunch on continuous improvement, some more on quality systems, and others on personal skills. So we'll alert the winners of the of these ebooks after the conference. Come on, there we go. So thank you very much for attending with us today. I hope you gained a lot out of the experience. I will see you all again tomorrow morning at 9:45. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the link for tomorrow's session is posted in the chat. Thank you so much.